Today's video is brought to you by Tour Lima, tourlima.com. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching Green Wave TV, alternative media television. You know, I'm seriously appalled. Actually, not really appalled, but just kind of not surprised, just amazed by how much the federal government, our president, Barack Obama, and his administration are allowed to get away with. And it's not just a Democrat, left-minded thing. I mean, I am so far past the right-left paradigm, and I think that there's a growing minority in America that is as well. It's ridiculous, but the fact that these people can literally get away with murder, I find absolutely crazy. I find it absolutely insane. For example, we know for a fact that President Barack Obama has been running trafficking guns out of Libya into Syria, which resulted in the deaths of 4 Americans, including Christopher Stevens. Now, yes, Christopher Stevens was working for the CIA, and he was helping facilitate the arms deal and the arms trade via Libyan ships while he was murdered by a supposed protest. Remember how the administration told us and they blamed it on an anti-Muslim film that turned out to be completely incorrect, turned out to be a fabrication and a lie by Obama's camp. What's interesting about it is that person is the only person that's actually in jail now, even though his film didn't spark the protest. He violated his parole, and he's the only one sitting in the clinker to this very day. Now, people have talked about this, Republicans have talked about this being worse than Watergate, because nobody died, at least at what we know of, died with Richard Nixon's Watergate. People died in Benghazi. 4 people, 4 Americans, including Christopher Stevens. And I found it so interesting yesterday, just how the politics are played, because they do it so well. They do it so beautifully. They actually have the great majority of Americans convinced that they have your best interests at heart. And that is what I find so amazing. That's what I find is a key structural difference from people that have a viewpoint like me and, the great majority of the masses is, I don't trust my government. I don't trust my government at all. In fact, I fear my government, much like the Founding Fathers did. I fear them because I know what they're capable of, because I study what they do. Not what they tell me, but what they do. As a Wall Street broker in 2008, working for Merrill Lynch, I watched from the inside our federal government, these politicians that supposedly have our best interests at heart, bankrupt everybody around me, everybody that I knew, while pickpocketing from those same people to bail themselves out with their same crony money that they just stole from us, stole from America, stole from all of you, and then use those funds to pocket and to pad up the firms that they just crashed in the first place intentionally. This was all a deception. This was all the intelligent, I like to call it the intelligent design behind the biggest heist in American history, amounting in trillions of dollars. But so I'm watching Hillary yesterday, and I think it's funny how, she waits weeks pass, she has a concussion. People like me immediately call the bluff on that. We call bullshit on it. That's a total lie, total convenience. I mean, unless she's dead, I want to see her in court. Unless she's a vegetable, I want to see her testimony on Benghazi. But of course, if you say that, you're insane. If you say that, the left is going to come over here to the other side and be like, how dare you? How dare you question Hillary Clinton's health? How dare you? She is ill. She is ill, and that's how you're treated. And you see, they play the left-right dynamic in these politics so well, when it's clear that they were just buying themselves time. They were buying themselves time because they know that this is a Watergate moment. They know that this is impeachable. They know that this could ruin President Barack Obama, just like Andrew Breitbart knew he could ruin him. And what did they do to him? They murdered him. The federal government murdered Andrew Breitbart. And so I'm going to get to this testimony in a minute, but I find it interesting. We have Martin Luther King's birthday. I think Martin Luther King would have rolled over in his grave if he knew Obama was likening himself to such a great person, such a great civil rights leader. Martin Luther King was about freedom. He was about the struggle for that freedom. That is the opposite of what President Barack Obama is about. President Barack Obama says he's about that, but he is about tyranny, he is about control, he is about power. More importantly, he is about absolute power, and it's exactly why he wants your guns. After stealing from you, pickpocketing the trillions of dollars, a continuation of what President George W. Bush had done, now he wants the guns because it's the last line in defense. In our defense, the people of America, before total tyranny is ushered in. And when we study this in history, immediately after they take the guns, every single time it results in mass genocide. We saw this during the outbreak of World War II with the rise of Nazi Germany, the SS, the Gestapo, Hitler. We saw this in China with Mao. We saw this in Russia, in the USSR with Stalin. So the fact that President Barack Obama likens himself to Martin Luther King Jr. is absolutely appalling. Makes me sick to my stomach. I think Martin Luther King would roll over in his grave today if he knew what was really going on in his name. Because MLK was about freedom. He was about the struggle of that freedom. And I'm hearing a lot of talk right now from pundits on the left saying, you know what killed MLK, huh? Huh, Christopher, what killed that guy? A gun. A gun killed MLK, which is exactly why they say we need to get rid of guns. You know what? A gun was shot to kill MLK, but it always amazes me what most Americans don't even know. MLK was murdered like Andrew Breitbart by the government. His own family admits this. When they went to trial, it was resolved as a conspiracy. It was resolved as the government behind the barrel of a gun, murdering Martin Luther King Jr. because he was getting a little too big for his britches. You know, we're no different. The struggle, this libertarian movement, but I don't even really like to call it that the movement for liberty is a lot like the civil rights movement was in Martin Luther King Jr.'s era. In fact, honestly, quite frankly, and no disrespect, the liberty movement is the N-word of the new world. We are the new N-word struggling for our rights back in the day of Martin Luther King Jr. In fact, if Martin Luther King Jr. was around, I can't speak for him, but I would like to think he would be helping us with our struggle for liberty, independence, truth. These are things that I just don't think we really have in the world anymore. And that, I think, is incredibly sad. We need to get the message out to more people. We need to uncover, but show the people blatantly the truth so that they understand. Because the great majority, they're never going to be convinced. They're never going to question their government. They will gladly follow right to the slaughterhouse and be murdered. Just like Hitler gassed good portions of his population. Just like Stalin murdered good portions of his. And just like Mao murdered good portions of his. The great majority, they're always going to trust. They will remain ignorant. But what the government is afraid of, what these tyrants are afraid of, because government in and of itself isn't necessarily bad, but what these immoral people are afraid of isn't the majority, isn't the masses, but it's that healthy 5-10% maybe of educated individuals that know and understand the truth and understand what's really going on behind the scenes. You know, I was watching and kind of refreshing myself on Zeitgeist, Peter Joseph's series of movies. And I didn't watch the whole thing again. I just kind of watched about 15 minutes as kind of a reminder. And one of my common criticisms of Joseph's work is that it's very much a utopic viewpoint of the world. At least that's what he's kind of pitching. You know, let's wake up. We can have such a better world. We can have such a better existence. And that is actually a personal criticism of mine as well. Of me, personally, because I wish we could have that utopia. I wish we could have that perfect better, more moral world where we wake up and realize what's most important. That it's not money, that it's not the credit system, that it's not our job, it's not the car we drive, it's not the clothes we wear. It's none of that. It's our relationship to each other, it's love, it's hope, it's doing good things for other people, and trying to realize and I think fulfill our dreams and hopefully better the world around us and better the people around us and leave that as a legacy to future generations that can learn from that. And hopefully pick up that torch of liberty and pick up that torch of goodness and carry it into the future so that we can have an even better world generations down the line. So we're never going to wake up everybody. We're never going to have the masses really get it. But you know, that's not even what I'm personally worried about. What I care about is that that good, healthy 5-10% understands the truth and is willing to act on that. In real life, in a peaceful way, in a way that brings understanding and brings hope to a world that I at times just find so incredibly tragic and so incredibly destitute of anything real and anything good. And that's the change that we can affect. That's the change that Martin Luther King affected. Yeah, he had to sacrifice because everything comes with a cost. And he sacrificed and paid with his life. Because he was murdered by the federal government, because they didn't like him taking as much power as he did. He got a little bit too big for his britches. People like Andrew Breitbart, as passionate of a guy that he was murdered as well. Because the government and the people in charge didn't like and didn't want to hear what the guy had to say. More importantly, they were afraid of the trickle effect that it would have on the people that were listening. We need to think about that, America. But we need to understand that these people actually did affect change. That these people actually did shape our future, in my opinion, at least, for the better. And that's something that we can all do and we can all hope and strive for. Please, help us and help me continue to carry that torch of liberty and freedom and hope and goodness into the future. I'm Christopher Green. You've been watching Green Wave TV, alternative media television. And I just deliver the Daily Wave. Hard-hitting and in your face. Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're watching Green Wave TV, alternative media television. I keep hearing from the corporate whore liberal media. I'm also hearing this from our politicians. In fact, when Joe Biden spoke today, he said that America has changed. That the world is